Hello, welcome to Should I Buy This Game? Featuring La Fleur. My name is Christine, and in this video I'll give you an overview of how the game is played, and then share a few things I may like or dislike about the game to help you decide if you want to add La Fleur to your collection. This is the game La Fleur, and in this game we are using our flower cards to get us garden features, which will add allure to our chateau. So we can get visitors to come and visit us, and hopefully while they are visiting us, give us prestige so we can win the game. So to start, each player gets a character card, and this card will get you bonuses. So when I have 3 of the water allure, I'll be able to get a flower card. When I have 3 of the path allure, I could get a coin. And when I have 4 artisans, I can get a prestige. And this last bonus varies depending on the character, and the allure type varies. So there's a variety of cards that you can pick from. There are also 5 allures we are dealing with. These are vistas, paths, architecture, flowers, and water. You start with 3 coins, and we have the upgraded metal coins. This is our allure path. And then these are our 2 starting artisans. So they all give you sort of a benefit. So this one, if I use this when I go to the flower market, when placing this artisan face up, flower cards cost 1 fewer coins. And we'll talk about the flower cards in a moment. And then if I was to use this one, when I go to the coins, I'd be able to get an additional coin on my turn. And you also start with 3 flower cards, and the flower cards have the allure. And this is sort of like the money value. You're using these symbols to purchase our garden features. So over here are our garden features. So as I mentioned, so each of them have an allure on them, and that's the cost to get the feature. And as I mentioned, you use your flower cards. But some of the bonuses are either when visited, when acquired, end of round, or game end. So they all have different bonuses on them. And then whichever allure you paid here, we will move that on our track. And I'll show that when I show you how the game is played. We have the flower market up here. And you'll notice the ones that have 2 allure cost 2 coins. This one here is a wild. It could be used for any. It costs 1 coin. But these ones are free. All you have to do is place your token here, and you could take one of these cards and add it to your hand. Here is where you would place to get coins. So typically you would get 2 coins, but if I had used that artisan, I'd be able to get 3 coins. And once per round, you could place a token here to get a prestige, which will move you along the prestige track. We have our artisan cards. Ideally, we want to have 4 artisans. They cost 8 coins to fill up to 4, and if you want to replace one later, it costs 4 coins. And each of the artisans also have a allure symbol that you can use when getting your garden features. Over here are our visitors, and they want to visit the chateau that has the most of the allure that's in the corner. And they will give you some sort of benefit if they visit you. Here is our prestige track. And when we get to 4, or when one of the players hits 4, we add an additional visitor. At 8, we add then 2 additional visitors. And at 12, we add a 3rd additional visitor. As well, it triggers the end of the game, and there's 1 round left to play. And starting from round 2, we will be flipping over an event card for each of the rounds going forward. So the number of artisans you have represents the number of turns we'll have this round. So starting off, everybody has 2 artisans, so we have 2 turns. And one of the first things I'd like to do is look at the garden features, because these do not get refreshed until the end of the round. So I want to see, is there a feature I can buy with the flowers I currently have? And there is. So the first thing I'm going to do is move one of my artisans to garden features. This bottom one here is the purple, red, and pink. Now I have the purple and red here on my cards and the pink on my artisan. What you can do once per round is I can clock it and use that garden feature, or use the allure to get the garden feature. And then these 2 will get discarded. So I add this to my play area, and this is game end. So I don't need to worry about it right now, but I get 3 prestige if I have 4 artisan cards. So that will be another thing pushing me to get some more artisan cards. So because it was the purple, red, and pink, one of each, those 3 allure tokens can come onto my allure track like that. You just stack them, and I'm already on my way to starting to get more allure. Now, of course, your opponents are going to go next. And when it comes back to my turn, I may now want to use this artisan and its benefit of getting that extra coin. So I would move this to the coins, and where it says gain plus 2 coins, because I've used that artisan, I'm able to get 3 coins. So now I have 6 coins. So possibly in the next round, I'd be able to get another artisan and then be able to, going forward, have 3 turns per round instead of 2. Now, once everybody has finished taking all their turns, we now have a garden party, and we look at the visitors to see who they want to visit. So I currently don't have any blue, so maybe my opponent had blue and this visitor might visit them, but for now I'll just put it aside. Now I did get 1 red allure, so we're going to pretend that my opponent did not. So this visitor wants to come to visit my chateau. And basically what it does is we look down here, and he gives me plus 2 prestige. So I would move my token plus 2, and that's a really good visitor to get because you want to move along your prestige track. Now, if you had a card that says when visited and you gain a coin for that type, you would be looking for that to see does the visitor match any bonus cards you may have. But at this point, I do not have any cards like that, so then this visitor will just be put on the pile. And we would be setting up for the next round. And to set up, we're just going to replenish our card like that. We would gain our little people back. And this is when we're going to fill in the events with the new card. If any of the flower cards were taken, we fill those in. They do not get replenished as well. They just get filled in when it's time to start again. And at the start of the round, as I said, going forward, we have an event card. So this one says, during this round, each player may take back one of their artisans and place them again. So that's a really good advantage, giving us all an extra turn during this round. Now, the one more thing you want to do in setting up is you're going to check this track to see if you have reached 4 or 8 yet on the prestige track. And then we're going to set up our visitors. And the visitors are 1 per player. So if we are playing a 2-player game, we are putting 2 visitors out, plus if we're playing a 3 visitors, and then if there's any bonuses along the prestige track. So now that we've set up, it is time to start again. So I think I'm going to use my coin artisan again to go here to get 3 more coins. So of course, the other player will go, and then I'm going to use my second artisan to come to the Artisan Guild because I now have the 8 coins needed to get myself a 3rd artisan. So these would go back into the supply, and I would take it off the top. So this one gives me an architecture. If I go to the Artisan Guild, before placing the artisan, you may look at the top 3 artisan cards and replace them in any order. So that could have its benefits. But what's even better is I have another allure type here. Now, typically that would be the end. Oh, I would add a person here. So I do now have a 3rd person to play with. However, because of the event saying we can bring back an artisan, I'm going to bring back my flower artisan because I want to get a flower card. But my flower artisan allows me to pay 1 fewer coin for a flower card. So I'm going to use him to come to the flower market, and I want to get the wild one. It costs 1 coin, but I do not have to pay because of my artisan I used. And now I have a wild symbol in here. So I have 1 artisan left. So I want to see, are there any garden features I can get? So we have pink, blue, red, and green. but we only have 2 blues. Pink, but I have the wild. So pink, blue, purple. I could get that garden feature there. And I think that's the other thing I could do was get the 3 blues and use this card. You don't have to use both symbols, even though it is beneficial if you can use both symbols. And I have a wild. The 3 blues would get me 2 coins, and then this one gets me 3 artisans, if 3 prestige if I have 4 artisans, which was the same benefit as my previous card. So I would move this to the garden features, and I think I will get this one here. So it cost, I can use the pink, the blue, and my wild as the purple. And then I now move my pink one, my purple one, and I add blue onto my track. Now, the other thing I want to mention is once you get to 5, it says romance a companion. So whatever allure type you have at 5, what we would do is look at our visitors. And if there's a matching allure type on one of the visitors, you would take one of your artisans that you have going, you would put it in special invitation, and you could save them to be like, this is the person I want to romance. And say that he was the person, what would happen is they would come back here and they would stay here. And every time we had visitors, you would gain the prestige and the flower card again. So at the end of every round, you would continually gain it because they're now your companion that you would hold on to. But you can't do that until you're at number 5, unless you have a card that gives you extra benefits to do it earlier. And that is basically how the game is played. You would continue doing rounds as you're moving your prestige. And as I mentioned, when the first person hits 12, it triggers the end of the game, and there's one more round, and then the game is over. There is a solo mode to the game, and on the solo mode, you would play all of your players at once during the round. Once you've completed, we move to our solo mode person. They receive the event that is at the top. So this would get put into this area, and they would score whatever it says. So when visited, if they're visited by that, they would score. Then you would discard the card closest to the right, discard it. All the other cards would get moved down. And then we take the top 2 cards. I'm taking 2 cards because we currently have 2 visitors. Once we get 3 visitors, they would get 3 cards, and so on. And we flip it over, and then we would give them the allure. So in this, it's the 2 green and 1 pink. And that would be their allure track. These cards would get discarded. And then when we go to have the garden party, we would compare their allure track to our allure track to decide who will be receiving the visitors. Then at the end of the game, you would score the solo player the same way you would score yours, with whatever events they happen to have, the number of flower cards, coins, etc. And they would also receive these benefits once they reach those different levels on their allure board as well. And that's basically how the solo mode is played. There are also 2 expansions you can get for Fleur, and this first one is L'Orient. And with the expansions, you get extra garden features, event cards, artisan cards, and visitors as well. But the main part of the expansion are these vases. So you get a card, you start with 1 card, and there's different vases on it. And you also start with an exotic flower card. So these are used differently than our other flower cards. They have this symbol here to show they're the exotic flower. And this symbol here represents what you need to pay to add them into your vase. So I would need to get a flower symbol, the pink one, the allure, and I would have to use my flower card with the matching allure. This isn't one of them, but I would have to use a flower card to pay to then put this into my vase like this. Each card will hold 4 exotic flower cards, and then depending how many it holds will gain you prestige at the end of the game. So if you have 4 exotic flowers in here, you can gain up to 8 prestige. You're allowed to have 2 vase cards during the game for a total of 8 exotic flowers, which could score you an additional 16 prestige points, which is a huge number of points in this game. The other part of the expansion is this trade die. This allows you to take 1 flower card you already have. You would discard that card to use this die. You would roll it, and whatever it shows, in this case 3, I would be able to gain 3 flower cards from the top of the deck. Now, to do any of these things, to get the exotic flowers, there's always one pictured here. To get a flower or to do the trade, you would move one of your player tokens to the different areas like you would on the board. So it's just giving you 2 more areas to collect cards or to do a trade. And we really enjoyed this expansion. We use the trade a lot because it's a way you can turn 1 card potentially into 3. And you always get 1 card back, so you're never losing a flower card, but you're hoping that you can at least gain 1 or 2 additional flower cards. The second expansion is the Rose Market. And this allows you to get these cards. You're given 1 to start, and otherwise you have to pay either 2 coins or 1 coin for the cards. Or there are some other cards that will give you benefits because you get additional garden features, visitors, artisan cards, and events all related to the Rose Garden. But once you have a card, you look at the objective. So if you have 3 plus of the Path Allure, once you have achieved that, you can get a reward of 1 flower card. On top of that, however number of roses appear, you can use your allure track and move your rose allure along the track because there will be visitors that are attracted to roses. Now, the one other benefit of having a rose card is about romancing. If at number 5, once you hit 5, you can romance a companion. However, you can give a companion a rose and romance them earlier in the game. If doing so, though, you do have to remove the rose allure down, the number of roses that you're giving to the companion. But it's another way to get a companion earlier in the game is by giving them roses to make them, entice them more to come and be your companion. And that's basically how the Rose Market works. Again, you would have to put, if you want to get a card, you would put your player token there and then pay to receive a card, but there are other cards that will give you cards as well. So overall, we've really enjoyed playing Fleur. We have played it multiple times. We played it 2 players, 3 players, solo. We played the expansions. We played it regular. And to begin with, we love the artwork. It's just beautiful, the photos as well as all the flowers, the boards and that. It's beautiful. The other thing we really enjoy is the flow of the game. How you need to get your flower cards, to get your garden features, to move along your tracks, to invite the visitors, and then get your prestige. So there's a very nice flow to the game of how you need to move around. Sometimes you may get more flower cards in one turn, so in the next one you can get more garden features. But there's still that flow to the game that we really enjoy. Now, sometimes though, say with the garden features, there's been times where they were all needed a water feature, and maybe you don't have a water feature in your cards. One thing I forgot to mention earlier was you can use 2 cards at random to be any feature you want. So if you don't have, say, the flower feature, I could use these 2 cards and use it as 1 flower feature. So that's another option you have. Now, the one thing we found earlier on in playing is sometimes it was a little unbalanced where one person would be at 2 and the other person ended the game already. And we were like, what? Like, what happened? And we found that comes from the visitor cards. So as a house rule, what we've done is during a round, we make sure each of the visitor card is a different allure type, or there's some that don't have any allure and it's all based on the number of coins you have or where you stand on the prestige track or how many flower cards you have. And we make sure they're all different to give everybody a chance to potentially allure a visitor to their chateau. And by doing that, we found the games going forward were a lot more even. Now, at the end of the game, there might be a huge discrepancy, but it comes with the cards we got here. If somebody got a lot of game end points, they may at the end pull it out, like make a big difference in points, versus somebody who just got, say, one visitor, one acquired cards. But playing the game, we found that by having different visitors, we were able to keep the space between the two players a lot closer. It wasn't one person was here and one person ended the game. So let me know if you have played Le Fleur and what you think of this game.